Welcome back to the Trackstar Podcast. Today we have a particularly exciting episode. We're doing something a little bit different. We're just going to focus on one artist, Bruce Springsteen, who also happens to be one of my all-time favorite artists. The reason we're doing this episode this week is because there's a new movie coming out that you might have heard of called Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. And we got the chance to speak with the star of that film, Jeremy Allen White, who plays Bruce.
And I think I love that stuff because it's a lot of like unrequited love, you know, it's a lot of longing.
You're romantic.
I'm a romantic.
As well as the director, Scott Cooper.
Anytime I hear Bruce, a feeling comes over me that I don't really get from other artists.
This movie is about one of my all-time favorite Bruce Springsteen albums, a top 5 album for me, Nebraska. But when we did those interviews, it got us thinking a little bit more about the process, not only of making a music biopic, but of making this album in particular and what made it so special. So in addition to those two conversations, we're also going to talk to the author of the book that this movie is based on, Warren Zanes.
Nebraska is, I say it's the greatest left turn in the history of American popular music.
He's probably the foremost Nebraska expert in the world, save for perhaps Bruce himself. This is a really exciting one. I can't wait for you guys to tune in. If you've been enjoying the Trackstar Podcast so far, please take a second to subscribe, leave us a review. Now, without further ado, let's head out to Asbury Park to get into this one.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Check, check.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Trackstar, let's go.
I wish the world could be in these headphones right now.
I'm on the show. How fun.
We're off to a very hot start here. All right, can you just look in this camera for a second and just introduce yourself?
1, 2. Hey, I'm Scott Cooper, the writer and director and producer of Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere.
Okay, I want to talk to you about this movie, which I saw the other night and loved.
Thanks, Jack.
But
Thanks,
also
man.
want to talk more broadly about Bruce.
Yeah.
Have you been a fan of his like your whole life? Like when did it start for you?
Yeah, probably late teens when my father, who introduced my love of music to me through classical and opera and jazz and rock and roll and classic country, introduced me to Bruce through Nebraska. Not Born in the USA, not Darkness or Greetings or Born to Run, but through Nebraska, which is very fitting that I'm making this film about that period in Bruce's life and that record in particular.
I'm going to play you some songs, and you could tell me about these songs and what they mean to you.
Good.
And I'll play a second, then we can start talking about it. There we go.
Anytime I hear Bruce, a feeling comes over me that I don't really get from other artists, I gotta be honest. And it's not because I've just made a film about him. I'm sitting in the iconic Stone Pony. There's a connection that I have to Bruce that well transcends this film, that's about a man who speaks to me when I was at my lowest or when I'm at my highest, who speaks to people who live on the margins of life. And whether he's singing, you know, a darker track from Nebraska or this or, Jungle Land, anything. I mean, it's just there's something about the second you hear him, I'm not the only one. I've seen him with 100,000 people in Barcelona, or when he plays at See Here Now, or when he, played in Los Angeles recently at the Forum. It's almost a spiritual reaction you have to his records.
So the movie opens, one of the first scenes we see is at the concert, and he's playing Born to Run.
Yeah, 1981, Cincinnati.
How do you decide to start with that song in particular at the beginning of the movie? Because I think it's very different. It's a contrast from Nebraska and some of the darker stuff that comes later.
Yeah, because I wanted to show the casual fan, if they exist, of Bruce Springsteen, that we're catching Bruce at the beginning of the film at his height.
Yeah.
He's just finishing up the River Tour. He's playing Born to Run, which is a hit song. And you see a crowd that's completely enraptured in Bruce. And then we cut directly to backstage.
Yeah.
Just after the show, he's soaking wet. I've hugged Bruce when he comes off stage, and it feels like he's just gotten out of the Atlantic. And you see this contrast of the quiet, and it gets a little loud for Bruce. Bruce is most alive when he's on stage, whether it's playing in front of 300 people here at the Stone Pony, 100,000 in Barcelona, or 25,000 in Born to Run when we open the film. Because the rest of the movie largely is about this more internal reckoning that he's having as he writes Nebraska. So I wanted to show him at his height and then at his lowest.
Can you tell me about the process of recreating songs for the movie, especially songs that are so like Born to Run is one of the most famous songs ever.
Oh, I mean, it's iconic.
And you open the movie, so it's like there's a lot of that's a stunt that you have to pull off, right?
Well, making a film about Bruce is a stunt.
Everything
is a high bar.
Making a
it's
film,
daunting.
period, is a high bar.
Yes, but making about Bruce Springsteen, I mean, it's kind of a fool's errand that you're making a film about him during Nebraska because it's so hard to capture him. The process of recreating that is you have an actor that's as committed as Jeremy Allen White.
Yeah.
When we both stepped into these choppy waters, we did not want it to feel imitative or in any way like we were going for something that had to be perfectly Bruce.
Yeah.
We wanted it to embody Bruce. It wasn't imitation. It wasn't mimicry. It was about how do we capture his intensity, his vulnerability, his strength, his loneliness. And I knew that Jeremy could play all of those because you see that in his work in Shameless and The Bear. But it's, can he sing and can he move like Bruce?
We're gonna get to that place we really wanna go. We'll walk in the sun, but till it tramps like us, baby, we were born to run.
And that took a great deal of effort on his part to learn to sing, to play guitar, to play harmonica, to move like Bruce. And if you've ever seen him chop scallions on The Bear, you know the guy's committed, right? So I knew that he could absolutely do this, and he does it. And he not only blew me away, he blew away Stephen Van Sant. He's blown away Bruce, people in Bruce's life that have been with him for as long as Jeremy and I have been alive. I mean, it's remarkable, but it's a great deal of prep to get to that point to where you can attempt to recapture Born in the USA, Born to Run, any song from Nebraska. It's daunting.
So before you shoot that day, you've heard him perform this song.
Oh,
obviously.
many times. Oh, yeah.
So can you take us back to the first time you heard him sing for you?
Yes.
Like
well,
after
we went down to Nashville in the historic RCA studio with Dave Cobb, who's our executive music producer. Dave Cobb's a wonderful producer. He's worked with Bruce. He works with Chris Stapleton. He works with the band Greta Van Fleet, who were in the movie. He's one of the top producers in Nashville. And we went down and we sang we didn't sing. I watched as Jeremy sang all of the songs for Nebraska and started rehearsing this. And I think it was during Atlantic City that I said, my God, he's got this. This is going to be incredible. So often, films that chronicle the lives of musicians, I didn't do this in Crazy Heart, my first musical film, because it was a fictitious character that I created, and Jeff Bridges sang. But you always have the fallback of having the actor lip sync. But once Bruce and I heard Jeremy, Bruce was kind of shocked. He said, listen, it doesn't sound exactly like me. Yeah. It's close, but it sounds a lot like you, and it's warm. And, Bruce thought it was better. Not better than his performing it, but maybe better for the movie.
Yeah.
Because you're making a film about, the most authentic artist we have. So it seemed right. And then once Jeremy proved to all of us that and most importantly to himself, that he could play this and sing this, I knew we were in great hands.
It's cool to hear the director talk about how an actor prepares to play such an iconic role, but let's hear from the man himself, Jeremy Allen White, on how he got into character as Bruce Springsteen. Good to see you.
Nice to see you, man.
Well done.
Thank you. Thank
Saw
you.
it the other night. It was amazing.
Yeah? Oh, thanks, man. That means a lot. Appreciate it.
I'm glad we could do this outside.
Yeah.
Because it's a little bit different, and also, like, you can see the summer stage in the background.
Hell yeah, Stone Pony. There we go.
Tell me about this place. What's your relationship to this venue?
Man, this place. Well, my relationship to this place. We got to spend about a week here last winter, and it was nice. It felt like we had the whole place to ourselves, and I have to imagine that's what Bruce felt like when he started performing here. He was in bar bands performing all over Asbury Park, and he fell in love in Asbury Park. He met Patty, his wife, right over here at the Stone Pony, and I got to perform some of his music over here to 300 Bruce Springsteen fans who were very kind to applaud as if I was the man himself, which was really, really kind of him.
Well, you did a good job with the song, so it's like
Thanks,
they were
man.
excited to hear him.
Yeah.
Bruce Springsteen fans will hear like any Springsteen cover band to get excited too.
Man, I gotta tell you, we had Bruce with me that day, and Bruce introduced me before I went up on that stage, so they were all warmed up. They were very excited.
Tell me about how you learned how to do these songs, how to sing. Like, how did you prepare? It wasn't like you rolled up the set day one and you were ready to go.
Definitely
so
not.
before you started, between when you got the role and you started shooting, like what happened? How did you prepare?
Yeah, I mean,
musically.
Yeah. So I studied with a really wonderful teacher, this guy Eric Vitro, who helped Timothy Chalamet get ready for Dylan, helped Austin get ready for Elvis. And he also works with a lot of, he works with Sabrina Carpenter, he works with Rosalia, he works with a lot of great singers, Ariana Grande. So I got together with this guy. But it was funny. I think I was so worked up in the beginning about, how can I just try to sound like Bruce? And I wasn't thinking about the music. I wasn't thinking about where he was coming from. I wasn't thinking about, the story he was trying to tell, how he was trying to make people feel, or how he was feeling when he recorded the music. And I remember after working with Eric for about a month, he was just kind of like, let's cut all this out. Let's forget, Bruce for a minute and let's try to internalize some of this music and make it feel real for you. And then if you can make it honest and you can make it real, people hear it and they'll believe it. And if they believe it, it doesn't matter if you sound just like him. So that's where we started. And then we got into, okay, we're crooning a little bit on I'm on Fire. Okay, he's got a bit of a twang in Nebraska. Okay, we got to capture, his rasp and that shout on, Born in the USA. We started trying to break down, okay, let's try to sound more like the man after that.
But you also must have spent thousands of hours at home alone, just like
repetition,
like just doing it.
Totally, yeah.
Just getting lost in the songs.
Yeah, especially with the guitar. And I remember, I recorded the majority of the music for this film in Nashville at RCA, which is where Elvis recorded a lot of music, and he recorded the Sun Records. And that was a big inspiration for Bruce always, but especially for Nebraska. And I remember that was like a breakthrough where, I've been lucky in the last couple of things I've done. I've kind of had to learn a skill to do my job, and that gives you a shared experience with the person that you're playing. And I had a whole weekend in Nashville in a recording studio by myself, and I got to sing his songs over and over and over and over again. And that was the first time I felt really close to Bruce. That was the first time I think I found my confidence to go ahead and start this thing.
For the first song I played for Jeremy, we started in the same place I started with Scott at the very beginning of the movie. I'm going to play some songs.
Cool.
And we're going to talk about them.
Rock and roll. Born to Run. Title track on Born to Run.
So, I think that's the first time in the beginning of the movie that you're singing and performing.
Yeah,
Right,
that's kind of like
at
the
very
opening.
start.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
Tell me about that experience, learning the song, getting familiar with it, but then performing it like on the stage and sort of embodying Bruce the performer.
Yeah, we're meeting Bruce at this time. He's just toured Born to Run, which was his biggest record to date at the time. And it was his biggest tour. It was about 100 cities.
Yeah.
And that song to me is, that's about youth. That's about love. That's about the future. And it's about home, man. And it's, Born to Run was like Phil Spector, and was really big for Bruce Springsteen, still is, all that music. And Phil Spector came up with this idea of the wall of sound, and you can really hear that in Born to Run and all over the whole album for Born to Run. He's got that band backing him up, and it's almost overwhelming. You can't always like pinpoint all the instruments and what's going on. It's just that wall of sound coming at you, but it's got Bruce's very specific and detailed lyricism and storytelling.
You've seen Bruce and the E Street Band perform live before?
Yeah. So the first time I met Bruce Springsteen, I was in London, and I went to go see him perform at Wembley, which holds about 90,000. And
he holds all 90 in the palm of his hand.
That's the thing, man. So I met him before. I was invited to sound check. The first time we spoke was center stage at an empty Wembley, and I saw him perform, and I was invited to be kind of, right off stage with his friends and family. And there was this period where, I saw him kind of searching, off in the corner, and, Patty was there, his wife, and a bunch of his friends, and I was like, who's he looking for? He keeps like looking over in my direction. He was looking for, and then he found me, and he held on my eyes, and he performed to me several times throughout the show. And that's what it was, I think. It was like he was trying to just give me a taste of what it feels like to have 90,000 souls just like attached to you, which they are.
So after you finish that song, there's a hard cut, and Bruce, you playing Bruce, is sitting alone in a room like with a towel over your shoulders. Yeah. And it's like this very strong, stark contrast.
Yeah.
Is that something that you read about, you learned about, you felt? Is that something he told you about, the difference between being in front of all those people? Like, as an actor, how do you sort of feel that contrast?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I talked to him about performing, and I know a couple musicians that perform, and that come down is tough. That adrenaline spike is huge, and to get off stage, you've got the adrenaline dump. You're also exhausted, and in Bruce's case, very exhausted. That man will play 3.5, 4 hours. And Bruce has also said, I have no problem, 3.5 hours, 4 hours on stage. I know exactly who I am.
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable on stage. It's the other 20 hours of the day that I have a hard time with. And I think at this period of his life that we're portraying in the film, that's the case. That's what's going on.
We keep coming back to this theme of Bruce feeling most at home on stage as a rock star, and we've talked to a lot of track star guests over the years about Springsteen, and this theme comes up over and over again. Let's hear from some track star guests on Springsteen and his performances.
I saw him in 1978 at Winterland Arena in San Francisco. The best show I've ever seen. Changed my life, actually.
How?
The 70s were like a real downtime. And then we saw this show where for 4 hours, this guy sang about the power of life and doing it.
I saw him in D.C., so he just played September 7th that night at Nationals Park, and he crushed it.
I've consumed every single live video of Bruce Springsteen that exists on the internet. Every single one.
They do some benefit concert, Bruce Springsteen, Tom Petty, and Bruce Springsteen just owns the concert. Yeah. It's in a stadium, everyone's going crazy, and Tom Petty has to go on before him, and the stagehand is like, hey, don't worry, the audience, they're not booing, they're saying Bruce. And Tom Petty goes, I don't know which one's worse.
We stood all night in line for tickets.
I got it last-minute tickets, $100. I sat right behind home plate. I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to do it. And he played for 3 hours. And he just has that intensity. He'll go into the crowd and start with the guitar, start touching all the fans. Such a real guy.
Backstage, there was a darker side that only some got to know. So let's head up to the studio for an essay on the contrast between Springsteen's stage persona and his private battles. I think this is the first episode of the podcast where we're revealing the construction site that is our office right now. If you're listening and not watching, soon it's going to be finished and we're going to be able to record the show in a brand new, beautiful space. And we're going to bring back Trackstar Presents and have some performances in here. Okay, without further ado, essay time. Bruce Springsteen built his life around the charge of being on stage. The sweat, the noise, the sense of total connection. For decades, that rush defined him. Springsteen biographer Warren Zanes calls it the two-way exchange of rock and roll. The stage gave him control and purpose, and every night was a test of endurance and faith, a chance to turn his own need for release into something shared with thousands of strangers. However, when the lights came up, the charge often disappeared. Mild post-tour depression can usually be expected, Bruce admitted in his autobiography, Born to Run. The shows are an insane high. When you come off the road, that stops on a dime, he added. The relative silence backstage sent Bruce adrift. From nowhere, a despair overcomes me, he wrote. I can only watch. That's what I do. I watch and I record. I've just exceeded the once surefire, soul and mind-numbing power of my rock and roll meds. The energy that lifted him night after night would drain away, exposing the emptiness underneath. Bruce's need to perform traces back to a house filled, as he himself put it, with ghosts. In Born to Run, he remembers his grandparents' home and the portrait of his Aunt Virginia, who died at age 5, hanging above the television. Her absence, along with the tension between Bruce and his father that filled the house, shaped the emotional tone of his childhood. His father's depression was a constant in the house, hanging over the family like weather. Bruce described manic depression and bipolar personality as the prize in the Cracker Jack box in our family. And Zanes writes that returning to those memories through his songs became an attempted rescue mission. That mix of reverence and loss defined his writing, his restlessness, and his search for redemption in front of a crowd. Working entirely by himself on a 4-track recorder, Bruce made Nebraska a study of isolation, not just in its lyrics, but how it was created. As quoted by Zanes from a 1984 conversation with Kurt Loder, Bruce said, Nebraska was about that American isolation. What happens to people when they're alienated from their friends and their community and their government and their job? Those are the things that keep you sane. Stripped of the band and the roar of an audience on Nebraska, Bruce faced the loneliness he had been performing against for years. After finishing Nebraska, Bruce moved to Los Angeles to continue work on Born in the USA. But the darkness followed him there. Zanes writes that the despair got in the car with him as he headed for Los Angeles and met him at the door when he arrived. Unlike many rock star stories, Bruce's crisis had nothing to do with drugs or excess. He mostly stayed sober, terrified of losing the control that performing gave him. The battles he fought were internal: exhaustion, depression, and the weight of his own perfectionism. Even at his peak, Springsteen was still wrestling with the same ghosts that shaped him. The roar of an audience could lift the weight for a night, but it never erased it. Every encore was another attempt to feel whole, another reminder of how temporary that feeling could be. A lot of the quotes from that essay are from this book, Bruce's autobiography, Born to Run. But what's interesting about this book is there's only one chapter on Nebraska. So to fill in the blanks, we spoke with someone who knows more about Nebraska than anyone, the author of Deliver Me From Nowhere, Mr. Warren Zanes. Welcome to the Trackstar Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm Warren Zanes. I'm the author of Deliver Me From Nowhere.
Where are we right now? What is this place?
This is one of the Montclair, New Jersey libraries.
And why are we recording here of all places? Besides the fact that you live here.
Yeah, the whole process of this book becoming Scott Cooper's script, then becoming a movie, is a really very Montclair story. A producer, Eric Robinson, had reached out to me, and I told him, I love that he thinks there's a movie in this book, but if all he has is Warren Zanes, he has nothing. He needs Bruce Springsteen's life right.
Yeah.
He needs music clearance.
How quickly after the book is published does this happen?
2 months.
Just right away?
Yeah, this never happens. It all went really quickly, and then suddenly there's a first day of shooting, and it was a scene with Jeremy Allen White in this library, and it's close enough that I could walk from my house. So I got up and it was still dark out, and I I walk up the street, and it's, for me, it's a big day. My book is becoming a movie, and I got closer, and there are all these trucks and all these people I didn't recognize.
Yeah.
And I walked into the library, and it's all set to shoot, and there's Scott Cooper, and we hug each other, and then I look over, and there's a row of directors' chairs. There's Bruce Springsteen's, John Landau's, and then there's mine with my name misspelled. And I insisted they leave it that way, just to keep my feet on the earth.
Well, it's not misspelled in the opening credits of the movie.
Yeah,
right?
We caught that
when
one.
we see it right away. So that must be pretty exciting to have a book actually turn into a movie that has the backing of Bruce, and it's a big Hollywood picture, and it's got a superstar actor in it, and it's also really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's Scott Cooper, Bruce Springsteen. Those are the magic ingredients. Paul Schrader said this online about the film, like, there were 1,000 things that could have gone wrong, and it's amazing that they didn't.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like, I don't know if I'm going to end up with a good relationship with Bruce at the end, but it was Scott Cooper that gave me the confidence that it was going to go right.
So I want to go back before the movie, even before the book. I want to talk about this story and where it came from. And so maybe you can just give us a short outline of like what the book is about, what period in Bruce's career, and then we can go back a little bit and talk about what happened before that.
Yeah, Nebraska is, I say it's the greatest left turn in the history of American popular music.
Yeah.
Because it's the follow-up to Bruce's fifth record, The River, which was his first number one, had his first top 10 single. So he was really, in 1981, he was positioned to go from star to superstar. And then he went and made Nebraska. It's unfinished. It's imperfect. It was recorded on a cassette in a bedroom. It's really everything you shouldn't do to follow up your first number one. And then it had this life where it kept mattering. And it kept mattering to me. And so 40 years later, my way to kind of get into its mystery was to write a book.
So you chose to write about this period in his life because this particular record meant so much to you. How much did you know about the backstory before? It was the music for a long time, but did you dig into the backstory when it came out and as you were listening to it?
Yeah, good.
And obviously there's a lot of interesting stuff we'll get into about how it was made and how unique that was.
Yeah, but that's a good question because I didn't know a lot. And my basis for launching was his memoir.
Yeah.
And in the memoir, his account of Nebraska goes by in a couple pages. And then immediately after that, he takes this road trip west.
Yeah.
And has this depressive episode. Really, it's a breakdown. And reading that, I just had the strong feeling that there was a connection between whatever he went through, whatever he was into in making Nebraska, and that kind of bottoming out in his life where all the meaning dropped out, and he was in real trouble.
So at the time, he was really making two different albums at the same time, right? He was sort of supposed to be working on Born in the USA. Can you speak to that a little bit, how that worked?
I mean, the so-called Electric Nebraska is coming out at the same time as the movie, which actually changed the story for me. He was working on 3 albums.
Yeah.
One was the Born in the USA we've come to know that would make him a global superstar. He was sitting on 5 top 10 hits, and he put them on the shelf. The Electric Nebraska was this other thing where he was taking the songs he'd recorded in the bedroom and bringing them to a commercial studio and kind of doing these recordings that were, Bruce, Max, the drummer, some Gary talent, but like 3-piece combo stuff. And then there were the original bedroom recordings, and he's sitting on all 3. And he chooses the one that's without question the least commercially viable.
So I want to learn a little bit more about how technically strange this was at the time.
Yeah.
So what does recording an album look like at this time in history versus the approach that Bruce took with the 4-track?
Yeah, you can almost think of it in terms of the geography of the tape machine.
Yeah.
In a commercial studio, you got a 2-inch tape. It's going by really quick. And so everything you're recording has a lot of room to be heard. In the bedroom, he was recording on a cassette, very small, going by slower, which means that every sound he makes has far less space. So if you translate that to like sonic quality, the cassette is down there in the gutter and the 2-inch tape is up there in the heavens. And he took it to the gutter.
Yeah.
But it's the only official Bruce Springsteen release that he made, not knowing he was making an official release. He was just making demos. Quality didn't matter.
When does that change for him? When does he recognize, like, wait a minute, this is it right here. This is the record, and how does that happen?
He's talking. The songs on Nebraska are really interesting. To me, he's thinking more like a short story writer than a singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
And in any short story, what's making the narrative vibrate? It's those characters and what they're going through. So he felt like when he re-recorded the demos that he'd done in the bedroom in a professional studio, that he was losing those characters. That, as a statement, tells you that he was thinking differently about recording music at that time than any of his peers on the pop charts. He wanted his characters to be as palpable, as front and center for the listener as he could. So it was a different measure. It wasn't about quality. It was about, are they animated? And he makes that decision that they're at their most alive on this shitty cassette.
We just heard Warren Zanes talk about how the songs from Nebraska were most alive in the demos. To understand how director Scott Cooper captured that same rawness on film, I wanted to play him a song from Nebraska. Check this out.
I want to play you one more song.
Great.
A contrast. This song's from, is a Nebraska song.
Oh, boy.
My little sister's in the front seat.
I also
dream.
love this song. Used cars. So there's a theme throughout this movie about cars. There's a lot of time spent in cars. There's a scene where he's buying his first
driving
new
with his
car,
father, and
driving
his
with his
sister,
dad. Tell me about
Virginia, who's
the
seen
importance
film with
of
Bruce.
placing it in the car.
Well, Bruce writes a lot about cars.
Yeah.
Right? And when you are a major celebrity, rock star, I imagine, if you were an actor like Jeremy, because I know this from my friends who were celebrated actors, when you're in your car, you're alone, you can be yourself, you can sing, you can cry, you feel at complete control. Bruce said to me, in a 24-hour day, the 3 hours that I'm on stage, 3.5 hours, is when I'm most alive. I'm communing with my fans, and I don't have any worries. It's the other 21 where I'm really in trouble. But being in the car is incredibly helpful. I can listen to music, I can sing, I can hum melodies, I can escape the problems that I have. But Bruce also uses his car to drive every day, or 3-4 times a week if he's in town, from Colts Neck, New Jersey, to Freehold.
Yeah.
Drive by the old home place and just stop like you see him do in the movie. And he still does it all the time. And it connects him with his roots, which I think is important for Bruce when you become such a massive icon, to stay rooted as much as you can. But it also connects him to his father.
Yeah.
It connects him to his mother, to his sister, Virginia. that we see when we see them riding in Mansion on the Hill, but for used cars. And
I love that sequence, by the way. Going to the mansion.
Oh man,
it's incredible.
Thank you. Yeah.
Last question. You get to make a sequel or another movie about a different period in Bruce's career.
Wow.
What album are you going to focus on?
Yeah, maybe the run up of Bruce being a bar band musician, making his way up to Born to Run and Jungle Land. Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see if audiences want another.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time.
Appreciate it, man.
Great to meet you.
Yeah,
Well
thank
done.
you.
It's really, really, really brilliant.
Man, thank you.
Nebraska is my favorite Bruce Springsteen album. It's an album that I discovered when I was in college. It takes me back to a certain time and place. There's an intimacy in there that you, the listener, feel with the songs. It's inspired me over and over again many times in my life. So let's continue this conversation. Go back to Jeremy Allen White with another song from Nebraska. But before we do that, a quick word from our sponsor, Rivian. I'm currently recording this in the backseat of my Rivian R1S. I don't usually sit back here. I'm usually in the front seat driving, but it's quite nice back here. And the reason I'm here today is because this is my office for the day. Our office, the Trackstar HQ, is currently under construction, and it's a little bit of a madhouse in there. So I've decided to escape to the street, to a parking spot, to work. This car is Wi-Fi enabled, so I can connect my laptop directly to the car's Wi-Fi. I can hang out here all day, listen to the radio, get some music playing while I get some work done. But it's also extremely quiet. If I open the door, it'll be nice and loud out in the streets of New York City. In here, in the R1S, totally peaceful. If you're looking for a little bit of quiet in your life, I encourage you to demo drive an R1S and try it out for yourself. Okay, let's get back to the show.
Yeah, this is Nebraska. That's the opening track for the film, title track. This song, just the harmonica, so haunting. It's kind of setting you up for the journey you're about to go on, not just in this song, but the whole record. There's a sound with this song and on the whole album. It's both very intimate and very kind of like far away at the same time. And yeah, this song was inspired by Charles Starkweather, who was portrayed by a different name in the film Badlands by Martin Sheen. And that's a song I'm very familiar with, and I'm sure I listened to more last year than any other living person, and might have sung it more than any other living person last year as well.
We got to see your end of the year wrapped it was a lot of Bruce.
It was wild.
Bruce
it was
was
all
probably
Bruce.
your number one.
Bruce was number one. Bruce was number one.
I found myself very creatively inspired by this movie. Partially him seeing that film and then going to the library and studying and then getting the notebook out and writing things by hand. And is that something that you felt when you were making this and when you were watching the film? And did you find yourself as an artist being inspired by Bruce's artistry? I feel like it comes across so strong in this film.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that interested me most in my kind of wanting to do this film is, you're being invited into the creative process, a creative process, never mind the creative process of one of our greatest, songwriters or writers, full stop. I'm always really interested in that. There was something I was watching a lot while we were making the film, because it deals with the same thing, and it was that Peter Jackson documentary on the Beatles, that Apple series. It's insane. You're just invited to this world, this world, and you're a fly on the wall through this process. And for me, you're always looking for things. I mean, one of the first jobs I ever had was this TV show called Shameless, and I got asked, where did you come up with this character? And I said, I think this was a guy I looked up to for a long time, and it was really a creation of, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I went to school in Midtown Manhattan, and one of my favorite things to do, on that long train ride was just people watch. It's the best, people watching in the world, and I think, Lip Gallagher was kind of a creation of that time on the train, getting to watch other people and also having a private time to kind of pretend like you could be anybody. You know what I mean? Nobody knows you.
I rode the subway back and forth to high school every day.
Where'd you grow up?
East Village, and I would just go on the Upper West Side.
Oh, right on, man.
And so it was the same thing, like that experience of being in the car, in the tin car, with all these other people.
Yep.
And actually, I was on my way to see the premiere the other night, and I was on the 1 train at 42nd Street on that platform, and I was leaning against the pole, and I was like, this is where I used to, like, every day of high school.
Yeah.
Where I would, like, sit and think about life. Because you're by yourself, but you're with all these other people.
Totally. And you're listening to music most often.
You're listening to Nebraska.
And you can pretend, I would listen to, like, when I was young, I would listen to a lot of, like Big L and Nas and stuff like that, and really go on these journeys and I don't know, really start pretending to be somebody that, I wasn't, I guess.
When did you become like a Bruce Springsteen fan? Did you listen to him as a kid, or did you discover him later on in life? And obviously you've dove much deeper recently for this role.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in the early 90s in Brooklyn, and so I don't remember a time I didn't know the name Bruce Springsteen. I don't remember a time that I didn't know at least like the jukebox hits and the radio songs. I think, I listened to Born to Run in its entirety at some point in high school, which was great because it's so sort of like anthemic and fun. I still listen to, for some reason, like Hungry Heart always makes me
too
think about Christmas. Have you ever, do you see that at all? Like, I listen to that like every Christmas time. It's always on my Christmas playlists. But that was kind of my introduction. I found Nebraska in my early 20s, and it was recommended to me by some musicians. I think it was like Bon Iver's For Emma had come out, and there was like all this lore around, well, was he sick? He had mono, and he went to a cabin, and like what was going on. And so me and all my friends were talking about that, and then Nebraska came up, and we discovered, or I discovered a little bit of the lore kind of around the preparation of that album and the recording of that album, and how, he recorded that album alone, and that's become fairly commonplace. Now you can kind of record a record, in a hotel room or in your bedroom or in your kitchen, but at the time it was kind of crazy. And so I remember listening to that record in my early 20s. And then, like you said, I went all the way, getting ready for this.
You've now heard both Warren and Jeremy talk about Bruce's recording process for Nebraska, something that everyone you play these songs for is blown away by. It's also a risk that most artists on major labels would never take. Let's go back to Warren to learn about how Bruce got away with this. He is signed to Columbia, and he has his first album, and he's discovered by John Hammond, or he's signed by him, and there's like a lot of hope about Bruce Springsteen that he's going to be this big star, and his first record doesn't sell, right?
Yeah, first record doesn't, second record doesn't.
Second record doesn't sell.
And at that time, major labels had a little more patience than they do now, but not a whole lot more. So if you've got two records that aren't selling enough to make back the initial investment, you're in a tricky territory and you might get dropped.
Yeah.
So going into Born to Run, that was the position, was like, this is it.
Yeah.
He was going to bleed over that one.
So that record becomes a huge monumental success and is recognized. What happens when Born to Run comes out?
I mean, not in numbers a monumental success, but it's the cover of Time, the cover of Newsweek. It gets him to the point where he knows he's going to get to make a couple more records, but it's not hits. He's not having hits, which that's really where you start to hit the high numbers. Like when he got to Born in the USA and he had a half a dozen hits off one record, that was a different thing. Then that was like a true arrival. Born to Run was, okay, I'm in the game. People started to know him as, for lack of a better word, a brand.
Yeah.
They knew what you were going to get if you go see a live show, one of the very best, up there with James Brown.
Yeah.
They knew that the songwriting was going to be emotional, that it was going to be, often inspiring. So there was something about him that was established. But it's interesting, because you follow these careers, and long careers are very interesting to me. The kind of architecture underneath them. And Nebraska makes no sense.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that really sucked me in to this record as a subject matter is why would anyone do this?
Yeah.
I think on some level he knew he was fertilizing his own experience, but the risks were deep.
Is there pressure on him with Nebraska to sort of have a hit, or is he he can get away? He's one of the few people who can get away with doing something like that, taking that left turn.
Yeah, he can get away with it because the record company isn't going to reject it.
Yeah.
He's established enough that he's got some power. When you first sign to a record label and you're an unknown, you have no power.
Yeah.
They're taking a shot with you. By the time of Nebraska, he's got power, right? And then the pressure that he felt with Born to Run, which was really a creative, let's call it a creative marketplace pressure, is different from what's happening in Nebraska, which is a personal, psychological pressure. And he didn't have a name for it. He didn't know where it was coming from. That's the turmoil that the movie captures.
Up until this point in his career, he's been playing with a big band, and now he's doing something sort of, it's a stark contrast, especially since he's, as you mentioned, so famous for his live shows and for his performance. This is not the type of thing that he's going to be able to go out and play. Clarence Clemens is not going to solo on Nebraska.
Yeah. Well, he's over time, he's taking, like Johnny 99 on the last tour, he's produced that up. So the songs do have that flexibility, but that's not why he was putting them out in the world at that time. This is a guy associated with a band-based performance who leaves the band completely behind.
What happens after the album comes out, and how do people respond to it? And then what happens to him personally?
Yeah, well, it's the first record that he didn't do interviews for, that he didn't tour behind. So there's no promotion. And Bruce's take was like, I'm not going to explain this to people, and I don't know if I could if I tried.
Yeah.
So Nebraska goes out on its own, and then there's a 2-year period in which those tracks that he had recorded that become Born in the USA start coming off the shelf, and he creates an album around them. And so the two records that are most different from one another of all the recordings he's ever made are right next to each other chronologically. People who are looking closely are seeing that this artist is one of the more complex artists we have.
So years later on, when we look back and see, where is Nebraska? Where does it stand now?
Well, I'll tell you where it stood for me in early 1985. I was playing with my old rock and roll band in Greensboro, North Carolina. 150-seat club. We had it half filled. It's an off night for the E Street Band, and Bruce comes and jumps up on stage with us. And when he walked into our dressing room, and I say this in the book, for all of us, it wasn't, that's the guy who made Born in the USA. It was, that's the guy who made Nebraska. It already mattered to us. And I think to the wider world of music makers, it was the same thing around that time. People really picked up that he made such an unorthodox career move. And then there was almost a time release effect with the album over the next decades, where I think it just got kind of into people's systems and started doing its work. And, I almost didn't believe people when they'd come to me and say, Nebraska's my favorite album.
Yeah.
Are you sure you're not a Born to Run person? And I started to believe it more. I was just a little cynical about humankind, and I thought, you're not that deep. Nebraska can't be your favorite. But I started to believe it because I was hearing it so much.
Yeah.
And I think that's the time release effect that people, when it came out, my first response was disappointment. Then I was into confusion. And then I was just committed to listening to it because I was committed to Bruce Springsteen. And then it was in my system. And I kept coming back to it. And I think one reason that Nebraska's lasted the way it has is that it's not time-stamped. You can't tell where it comes from. I think the rare albums that have that live these quieter but longer lives.
Moving on, we're going to go to a different Bruce era, the Born in the USA era. If you look at Spotify right now, his top 10 songs, 4 of those come from Born in the USA. Let's go back to Jeremy Allen White and a song from the album that made Bruce a global superstar. This is like a lot of people's favorite Springsteen song.
I want to just do people just want to listen to the song a little bit more.
Sometimes people are like, let me just don't ask me questions.
I'm just gonna let him get into crooning. You know what I mean? Just really you really hear how much Bruce loved Elvis on this. This is I'm on Fire.
Yep.
But he's really crooning on this, and you can hear Elvis's impression, and Elvis was number one for Bruce.
Yeah.
That was the guy that was on in the house when he was young, and when he was dancing in the mirror as a kid, he was pretending to be Elvis. I love that song. It's one of his biggest songs. I feel like it connects with a lot of people. It's played at a lot of weddings. It's a beautiful love song. It's a song about longing. Those are some of my favorite songs. I really love soul. I love Sam Cooke. I love Otis Redding. And I think I love that stuff because it's a lot of unrequited love. It's a lot of longing. And I really love all that kind of stuff.
You're romantic.
I'm a romantic. Yes, sir.
Can you give us 3 songs that aren't from the movie and aren't from these 2 albums that you love from Springsteen?
Yeah, I'm gonna say "Hungry Heart" because that was, that was the beginning. I'm gonna say "Tougher Than the Rest" from Tunnel of Love, and I'm gonna say "Jungle Land." Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time.
Pleasure, man.
Great
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Really well done.
Thank you,
The movie's incredible.
It means a lot.
It's really cool to learn from Jeremy Allen White about how he really sunk into this character. I want to go back to Warren Zanes, who was on set for some of the making of this film, to learn about the relationship between Jeremy Allen White and Jeremy Strong, who plays Bruce's longtime manager, John Landau, who's also the second most important character in this movie and a fascinating person in his own right. There's another main character in this book besides Bruce, John Landau. Who is that? And why is he so important in this period?
John Landau is, it's funny, I was just
texting.
I was texting with my son, who's in Wales.
Yeah.
So my son's an actor, and he came to the set. We're at the catering tent. First guy he meets is Mark Maron. And then Jeremy Strong comes up the street, meets Jeremy Strong. Then it's Jeremy Allen White. And then we go up, and I'm like, I want you to meet Bruce. He meets Bruce. At the end of that day, I said, that's a pretty good day for meeting some cool guys. And he said, but John Landau is the coolest. And it made me totally love my son even more for seeing that.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of John Landaus. I wouldn't want to be opposite him in the deal making.
Yeah.
He'd win. He knows when to shift, when it's business.
Yeah.
When he needs to encourage Bruce to go in a particular direction, and when he needs to get the hell out of the way. Now, most managers have one speed. That's 3 speeds right there. and that John knows when to be in which one, I think has been a major part of the success that Bruce Springsteen has had in this career.
Before he became Bruce's manager, he was a famous critic and writer himself.
There are no famous critics or writers.
There were.
He was as famous as you could get. Yeah, there were. Lester Bangs.
Yeah.
There were some big ones, and John was right up there. But it was nothing compared to what was coming.
But he had a famous quote that he wrote about Bruce Springsteen before they worked together, before they knew each other.
Yeah.
I've seen the future of rock and roll, and it's Bruce Springsteen. It's something like that?
It's something like that. It's one of the best known quotes that everybody gets wrong. And I'm happy to join those numbers. But this is my paraphrase. I've seen the future of rock and roll, and its name is Bruce Springsteen. Yeah. But John was producing, and he'd done Livingston Taylor, but he'd done the MC5. He did it, Jackson Browne record. So that shift from being a critic to producing records, that's a really unusual shift. To then go and become producer and manager, it just makes him that much more of an unidentified flying object in the music business. The most exciting day on the set, though, for me, was the first time that Jeremy Allen White and Jeremy Strong were in a scene together.
Yeah.
And to see them as scene partners who approach their craft very differently.
Yeah.
The thing that blew my mind was I'd watch John Landau and Bruce Springsteen because I'm curious about the chemistry between them. Seeing those actors as Bruce and John, I'm like, I don't know how they got it, but they got the way Jeremy Allen White laughed at Jeremy Strong. And there are outtakes that were gold. The way he would make him laugh was just so Bruce and John.
You talk about, at the end of the book, in the new version of the book, that you talk about the movie a little bit, and you talk about Jeremy Strong's research that he did and the conversations that he was having with all these different people to learn about John Landau and how he was surprising people on set with these anecdotes that he was bringing up.
Yeah. I actually asked for a photograph of the binders of Jeremy Strong's research because it was so interesting. And the way he used it, I think people talk about method in a way that's way oversimplified. And I learned so much by watching these guys and the way they respected one another's method, but allowed the strengths of their approach to bleed into the other person's world. And I'm like, that's what scene partners in the very best circumstance can be.
You just got an advance on a new book that's focused on a different record in someone's career. Could be Bruce, could be someone else. What is that?
Oh, man. I like that total immersion. I mean, I'll tell you, I had one that got rejected. And actually, it was a band member who I'll name really got in the way of it. But I wanted to do a record on the Stones' Some Girls.
Yeah.
It's the first record where Mick plays a lot of guitar. It's the first record with Ron Wood. It's right around the time of Keith's drug busts. There's a lot of interesting stuff, and they're reaching out to punk and reaching out to disco, things that people otherwise think antithetical to one another. And Jan Wenner from Rolling Stone helped me out and got a proposal to Mick Jagger, and Mick just shut it down so fast by saying, if somebody's going to write a book, why wouldn't it be me? You know he's not going to.
So people have some homework. They got some records to listen to. They got some books to read if you haven't read it already. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. That was fun.
Yes, it was. We're coming to the end of this episode, and I wanted to take a second to reflect on how special it was to make this and have these conversations. I mentioned this before, but Nebraska is one of my all-time favorite albums, and it was so enjoyable to have these conversations with people who feel the same way about that record. And hopefully you listening to this, if you've never heard before, you get a chance to discover that album for the first time. Or maybe you, like me, love Bruce and you love Nebraska. And some of these anecdotes and stories about the making of the album were interesting to you as well. I want to take a second to talk about how this came together, because it was kind of magical. 3 or 4 weeks ago, I got invited by the folks at 20th Century Fox to attend the premiere of this movie. Of course, I said yes. I'd seen the trailer a few months before, and I was a little bit skeptical. I wasn't sure that Jeremy Allen White was going to be able to pull this character off. Spoiler alert, he blew me away. His performance was incredible. He sounds very similar to Bruce, but he brings a different element to the character that I just thought was out of control. I highly recommend you go see it. We got invited to see the movie. About a week later, we got invited to go to Asbury Park to interview Jeremy Allen White. When we got there, they asked us if we wanted to interview Scott Cooper as well. We weren't thinking about making a podcast, but as soon as we did those interviews, we realized we had to do it. We sent an email to Warren Zanes because his name kept coming up. And right after we did those interviews, I read his book and thought it was fascinating. I thought it was actually a different story from the story that you see on screen, but a great companion piece. Warren was kind enough to invite us to Montclair, to the library where they shot a scene from the movie, to talk to him about his experience writing the book and getting to know Bruce and getting to know this album and why he cares about it so much. And now we're here. One more thing that Warren mentioned, he gave some homework in his book. He gave some homework to me. I want to give some homework to you guys if you want something else. Obviously, number one, listen to all Bruce's music, Nebraska in particular. There's a new Electric Nebraska release that's probably just come out or coming out around the same time as the movie, so there's even more material. I talked about Bruce's Born to Run, which is a great book, autobiography that he wrote in a way that only Bruce can. Deliver Me From Nowhere, this is Warren's book that the movie's based on. This was fascinating. Tonight in Jungleland, The Making of Born to Run, which is Bruce's third album and the one that really set him on a new trajectory as an artist. And then There's Nothing You Can Do, The Making of Born in the USA, and the backstory on how that album catapulted him to the top of the charts, the top of MTV, global superstar status, all fascinating. If it's not clear by now, I'm obsessed with Bruce Springsteen, longtime dream guest of Trackstar. So maybe one day that'll happen. One more thing. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, wherever you're listening or watching. We appreciate you. We'll see you next time. Peace. Trackstar is a presentation of public opinion created by me, Jack Coyne, Kieran Coyne, and Henry Kornaros. Written and produced by Noah John. Edited and produced by Haley Sobel. Theme and original composition by Kieran Coyne. Mixing by Christian Stropko. Our agent is Joanna Orland at UTA. Thanks for listening. See you next Wednesday.